Hello friends, and welcome to tonight's bourbon review. So, tonight I will be reviewing Jefferson's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey Very Small Batch. As you can see here, I am slowly rescuing Thomas Jefferson from his fate of being drowned in whiskey. A fate that I hope to someday go and meet. So this is 82.3 proof. An odd proof. Usually you go and see it at about 90 or so, or 43 proof, or well, I mean like 43% or something like that. 45, 40, 43, 45%. This is not that. This is quite no strange one. So about the company. This is not a distiller. It is a blender. That said, as a blender, it's still pretty darn good. Whoever they're blending from, they're picking them pretty good. They have released a grain statement of about 60% corn, 30% rye, and 10% barley. So that's sort of the juice breakdown. Sources of the juice, don't know. Some people say it's the LDI, Lawrence Distributors. Other people say it's Heaven Hill. Other people say it's Jim Beam. Or it could be a combination of all three. Either way, the blender does his job very well. They do age some of their own stuff, but that's their higher end stuff. They're basically their flagship line. And it's fairly reasonably priced. I got this bottle for about $22. So, I have two glasses here. Oopsie, I almost spilt that one. That one would have been good. So, this is straight. This is with a little bit of water added. So, let's quickly go and see the color. As you can tell from the bottle here, it's a fairly standard orange, rather on the lighter side, so it's a bit more of the yellowish orange, but still normal bourbon color. It leaves a very nice set of legs around the glass, kind of clings there. You can't really see it too well. Now this was a little bit rough around the edges when I popped the bottle. I've gotten to the point where I don't go and review things. I have several glasses of it and let it air out a little bit. It gives a better representation of what the taste and nose is supposed to be like. I absolutely love the nose, the bouquet on this bourbon. It's one of the best I've ever smelled. It starts off with a very vanilla, vanilla, caramel, hints of corn. Corn's not very prevalent in this one. And then it ends with a very nice sort of limey, woody, citrusy, and it smells a little bit hot, and also a bit of mint too. You can tell the large amount of rye used in this. It definitely, you can smell that high rye build in there. Let's see if I can get something different out of the watered one. I haven't tried it watered yet, so. Definitely a lot more wood. Kind of a marshmallow thing kind of comes out to it once you go and soften down that sort of limey citrus. Caramel, but the other one's got caramel too. So. A lot of the other review notes kind of said apricot or stone fruit. I'm not really getting that though. Maybe. I don't know. I'm apricot's not something that's really up in my head of smells and tastes because I'm not particularly fond of apricots. Definitely has much. The watered one definitely has much more woody, much more softer characteristic to it. Obviously, I'm going to go and sniff the unwatered one again because I just love the way it smells. It's just absolutely wonderful. Mm. Yeah. It's very hot and spicy in the mouth, but not in a burning sort of way. So it's definitely hot flavored as opposed to hot because it's got fusel alcohols. Very creamy in the front. You know, it just leaves a nice, persistent, aromatic vanilla that kind of floats off in the tongue and hits the upper part of your nose. You don't really taste it on your tongue, but you get it in your nose, and it's very pleasant. On your tongue, the finish is long and pretty woody, and hints of citrus too, but not much. In the mid palate and towards the finish, rye asserts itself with that sort of minty, spicy bite there. Very peppery. Actually, more towards the minty than the peppery. I guess that initial one is just very intense. As a bourbon, it's of course sweet, but it's not as sweet as I've had many other bourbons. It's kind of on the drier side of the bourbon experience. You'll still taste sweetness on your tongue, but it definitely comes across a lot drier than most bourbons, but not dry, if you know what I'm saying. What I find interesting is that it has a very traditional bourbon front, and then it goes and gives a very rye whiskey-like kick at the end, which I find pretty pleasant. Okay, let's go to the watered bourbon. Interesting. It seems like the citrus flavors are much more pronounced. It still has the mintiness is declining, but the pepperiness is still there towards the finish. In fact, I would say that this is a bit more peppery with the water added. I guess because the front end is much more diluted. Definitely, yeah. The creamy aspect to the mouthfeel and much of that aromatic vanilla is kind of gone and sort of replaced by a fruitiness in the front. I can't really place the fruitiness of it. It's kind of intermingled with a woodiness well, the woodiness. They both are. They both have the woodiness, but the woodiness is much more pronounced in the front here, as opposed towards the end. In some respects, I think it's a little bit more drinkable with a small dash of water added, as opposed to having it completely neat. My only problem is that the very pleasant vanilla scent that lingered, that rose from the tongue and into the nose is kind of gone now, as well as that sort of nice coating feeling that was initially on the tongue. It definitely does have a much thinner mouthfeel now. Well, I wouldn't say much thinner, but a notably thinner mouthfeel. And back to the original. Okay. You get a wider variety of tastes on your tongue here, but for the overall experience from the nosing to the mouthfeel to the finish, I would go with the straight. Either way, it's a very, very interesting test to go and just show yourself how much difference just a little bit of water makes. Literally, it would be about a sip from this cup. I'm going to test it, and I try to do a little bit more than 5 drops now. I try to do up to about 10 or so. Maybe even more. Enough to get a sip of water and pour it into there. And it's just amazing how much of a difference addition of water can make. So a lot of reviews said that this is a very good starter bourbon. I kind of think it is. It's not too intense, and it's pretty quality for the price. Something like Wild Turkey is has a higher learning curve. So this is something, that along the lines of, like, I'd say Elijah Craig or Buffalo Creek. It's a pretty good starter, because it goes down pretty smooth and it's pretty interesting. So, Jefferson's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, very small batch. My batch number is 384, bottle number 539. They do about 8 to 12. Oh, I forgot to mention. Did I mention? Yeah. So the average age on this is about 8 years. So when they average out all the ages, it comes out to about 8 years old bourbon. So, Jefferson's. It's not that expensive. It's pretty interesting. Give it a shot. And a lot of people also, I know that some of you here are the 2 people watching this are cocktail fans. A couple of the reviews I read on it beforehand said that it does very well for cocktails, particularly juleps. So, there you have it, folks. That is your bourbon whiskey review for tonight. Cheers! And, oh darn, I'm a little bit too drunk to go and remember a Jefferson quote off the top of my head. Oh yeah, evil triumphs when good men do nothing. I think that's part of it. I can't remember all of it. Okay, cheers folks and good night.